And up next is our CIO panel. I'd like to introduce our moderator, Jordan Grantham, who will be leading our discussion today. Thank you, Jordan.
Morning, everyone. My name is Jordan Grantham. I'm the server team lead here at Emporia State University. We've got a great group of leaders on stage with us today, so let's have everybody quickly introduce themselves. Please include your name, current title, and which organization you work for and how long you've been there.
My name is Steve Funk. I am the Director of IT at the Board of Regents, and I've been there for 20-some years, so it's been a while.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Thomas Bunton. I'm the CIO at Kansas State University. I've been there about 2 years and maybe 8 months.
Mark Griffin, Fort Hays State University. I have been there coming up on 38 years in September.
Jeremy Pennington. I'm actually the Chief Information Security Officer for the University of Kansas and the University of Kansas Medical Center. I'm acting as the interim Deputy CIO for the University of Kansas Medical Center. I've been with the University of Kansas Medical Center longer than I haven't been.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Ken Harmon. I'm the CIO at Wichita State, and I've been, yay, sitting in the back, of course. Yep. And I've been there for 6 years.
Good morning, everyone. John Howardy, Chief Information Officer for Washburn University. I've been at Washburn for 29 years. I've been the CIO for 5 years.
Good morning. I'm Scott O'Mara. I'm the interim CIO and Director of Infrastructure here at Emporia State. I've been here at Emporia State for 12 years.
All right, thank you all very much. I think we're ready to get started with some questions here. So the first one is going to be for Ken and Thomas. With ongoing reductions in funding, budgets, and staffing across the state, what challenges have your IT departments faced while maintaining the same level of services and support?
All right, well, I'll get it started. Well, I would say in a number of cases, we actually aren't maintaining. You guys have probably all heard the phrase, you got to do more with less. Our phrase or our motto this year was do less with less. And we were very clear about that. So there's a number of services where we looked at them and said, we're just not going to be able to maintain, whether that's, cutting service level itself or, aging assets that we just know are going to increase risk because they're more likely to fail. So our point was to do less with less. And so I think the key with that is to set expectations or reset expectations with your customer base and with leadership. And we tried to do that, and we're still doing that just to let everybody know that, given another round of budget cuts, we're just not going to be able to maintain the level that we have in the past. And so that's how we're approaching it.
At Kansas State, we rely heavily on our governance group, which is fairly immature, but we're working really hard on improving that process. We do have a prioritization process that works across many of our verticals, so whether it's student, financial, HR, we still have a challenge slowing down the momentum that campus wants to move. We have a lot of aging infrastructure, a lot of aging systems. We're doing a lot of integration work. We do try to continue to share the story that a lot of these things are glued together with baling wire and duct tape, and that's if it's not used baling wire or duct tape. I think the other thing is we work together as a group up here to leverage vendor relationships and partnerships as much as possible to make sure that the Kansas dollars stretch a little further. So I appreciate the group up here that works really hard behind the scenes. Many of us have different needs and we're at different maturity levels, but behind the scenes we work really well together. So thanks.
Thank you both. The next question is going to be for Steve. If budget and policy were no object, what's one type of technology you'd roll out tomorrow?
When I thought about this, I'm not smart enough to know which technology to roll out, but I would like to change, if budget's no option, allowing people to have more time to experiment. I mean, there's a lot of understanding and research how important play is to young kids as they're developing and as how much they learn. I think the same is true for IT. And I think one of the worst consequences of the budget cost is there's no time to do that. I think there's lots of technologies out there that we could use, would like to use. We just don't have time to learn them. So that would be changing that process, the resource allocation.
Thank you, Steve. Question number 3 is for Jeremy and Scott. What services or functions are you centralizing today that were previously distributed, and why?
So trying to figure out what services centralize is very challenging, to be honest. A little background on me, I actually started in distributed IT at the University of Kansas Medical Center. I was in one of the schools, the School of Health Professions. So I got to see what could be delivered by distributed IT or non-centralized services. In a lot of ways, and kind of tooting my own horn here a little bit, but I was able to run circles around central IT because I was able to be focused on my customers. So that has stayed with me as I progress through the organization, and I don't want to disrupt what distributed IT or non-centralized services can do. But there becomes a point where a service becomes more of an enterprise level service. And at that point, I think it starts to make sense to centralize it. There's several different initiatives right now we're working on across the organization, but in a lot of cases, it's not as clear as we're going to centralize this entire service. We're going to centralize pieces of it that make sense from an enterprise standpoint. But in some of the schools, they have dedicated experts, and they're going to be better positioned in those schools to deliver that service. Accreditation, I don't necessarily want that to be a central IT responsibility. That needs to be handled by the schools. They need the resources to make sure their curriculum is delivering the needs. I don't think it's fair for central IT to have that responsibility. And also, I don't think central IT has the time to sit down with each individual school and program and say, this is what we need for this lab or that lab. So it's not easy, but once the service becomes common or becomes an enterprise level service, I think it has to be built centrally. Another thing that I think is very important that has caught me by surprise a little bit is we have to have our own stuff in line first. We cannot bring in a lot more stuff to central IT if we're not able to deliver in central IT on the services that we need to provide our customers, because that will fall apart very quickly.
I'd say over the last few years at Emporia State, I feel like we've centralized a few IT functions. Mainly the one I want to talk about is our campus-wide deployment program for laptops and desktops. Previously, prior to that, it felt like device management was handled at the department level, and that led to a lot of just overspending and thinking that it was their devices and their money and things like that. But what this has improved for us is better asset management, standardization, and budget control across the university. With the departments managing their devices, it kind of limited our visibility into the assets. There's a lot of duplicate device assignments, so really didn't know who had what. By shifting this centralized model, we've increased accountability, improved the tracking and the life cycle of the equipment, and then ensured more efficient use of university resources. So that's what I kind of tip our hat to our IT team here and kind of moving us forward. So,
Thank you, gentlemen. The next question is for Mark and Ken. What questions should campus leaders be asking their CIOs but often don't?
A couple of things come to mind, and I might first say that you're going to get the views of Mark Griffin. This is not necessarily the views of Fort Hays State University. And one thing that comes to mind is I think they need to ask, what are the things that we should be stopping? What are the things that we should not be doing? And to be fair, they have kind of asked that. But in my mind, I don't see things stopping in the IT area. So when they ask that and nothing changes, you start wondering, is this lip service or, what's the deal? And part of it is it's really hard. So I try to give them a little grace in that, but I think they need to take a harder look and figure out what are some things that we could be stopping. And I always recommend email, but that doesn't seem to go anywhere. So, but we have cable TV services, and I'm thinking, okay, who really needs cable TV in today's day and age? And when COVID hit, Wi-Fi in every outdoor area was awesome, and we had to have it. But now I look and I'm thinking, are there really places we need this? And so I just think they need to ask that question and then be honest and really make an effort to eliminate some of those services, because we can't keep doing more with less. And then the other thing that comes to mind, and it's because I think of my staff all the time, whether they believe it or not, I don't know. You can ask them. But I think the leaders need to ask, how are your staff doing? Are they buckling under the pressure? Are they burning out? And I think they feel like the administration doesn't care about them. And whether that's true or not, I don't know, but they don't ask those questions enough.
I would say that I would like to see the questions be more partner-oriented than supplier-oriented. And I worked at the university for 6 years, so I've worked in other places before. And I think it's always kind of been the same kind of thing where IT and other support capabilities are treated kind of as support capabilities and less as partners. So that's the kind of questions you get or the kind of approach that you get. So, for example, leadership will share things like, this is the vision, these are the primary goals that we have as an organization. So for us, it's things like, being an engine for the local economy. It's, providing low-cost education for first-generation students. So high-level kind of strategies that we're going after. But they don't necessarily get into the weeds or the details of how they're going to go achieve those things and ask, how can we leverage technology to go do these things? It seems to be more of a case where it's, hey, we're going to go work on these key strategies and we will come talk to you when we need you. And I think it's a miss. I think, leaders are very sharp people, but they're not going to know all the opportunities, all the possibilities. And I would prefer that we're engaged earlier and we're asked, how can we leverage technology to go do these things? I think we can come with some solutions and provide a better product in the end. So that's one thing I'd like to see more of. Another question I think I would ask if I was a president of an organization would be, what are the major risks in your area? And we're doing a lot more of that at WSU here lately, with a lot of effort on understanding our risks. But prior to that, and in other places I've been, I generally don't get that question. And I would think, as a leader, I'd want to know that. What are the big risks in your area? How are we mitigating those risks? Because those kind of things can come up and bite you. So those would be the gaps or the things I'd like to hear.
Thank you. Question number 5 is for Steve. What question do you secretly hope no one asks you today?
The question is, why don't the regents do something about this? Or sometimes maybe, why don't the regents stop doing something about this? It goes lots of ways. So I don't have an answer. I just wanted to take the opportunity to reassure you that I know you don't see the regents in action very often. I see them a lot. And they are passionate people. They really do support higher education, and they are doing the best that they can in an environment that really isn't all that friendly sometimes. So sometimes they get some wins. Sometimes they have to take some losses to do the bigger battles. I know there are policies that come out that aren't really popular, and it's usually not all their choice. So they're making the best that they can do out of a tough situation. But I do think they are working hard for you. And so if they're not doing something, it's either not enough resources, not enough time, all the other things that everybody else has problems with. But they are trying. If they look at IT at all, it's usually in a reactive way, and it's probably better if they don't. But when there's a security concern, they're responsible for that, so they feel like they need to do something. Or if the state government's doing different governance policies, maybe the regions are supporting. Well, let's do something to reassure the legislatures and the regions themselves that we really are doing the things that we need to be doing to be secure and efficient and all that. So there aren't great answers, but that's the question that's always hard to answer.
Thank you very much, Steve. Next question is for Ken and Jeremy. What guardrails or governance structure have you put in place around generative AI use?
Yep, I'll start with this one. So at the University of Kansas, and I'm going to include the Medical Center in the conversation here today, right at this point in time, we have two formal bodies that are in place. One's an AI Privacy and Risk Council. They meet monthly. And one is an AI Steering Committee, and it's a bi-weekly meeting. It's a lot more focused on research. Prior to getting to these two kind of formalized bodies, we had a lot of different groups that were stood up and had a lot of conversations on AI over the last few years. Our goal for how to protect ourselves with AI is we're really going to come back down to the data classification policy we had in place. We recently were able to extend the same data classification policy over to the Lawrence campus as well. So now the health system, the medical center, and the Lawrence campus are all on the same data classification policy, which has allowed us to work more collaboratively across the three organizations on some AI initiatives, especially in the research space. And of course, we're going to focus on protecting our PHI, restricted research data, and things like that. We do have a website that was published, ai.ku.edu, which has a lot of guidelines on it. It's been put together for people to reference. I think a lot of us are now, when we do our technology reviews or risk reviews, we're looking for AI in those as well. So that also triggers an updated security review. If we know a vendor has added AI, almost all vendors are adding AI now, so that's somewhat just expected at a renewal to look to see what's come in from an AI standpoint. Our real concern right now is a little more focused on agentic AI. That's where we're kind of pumping the brakes a little bit just to make sure we're all on the same page there and have thought through how that might work. And also making sure that we keep a human in the loop. Obviously, we're looking for enterprise-enabled platforms where we have more control centrally. That's not always possible from a research standpoint, but we are looking at more platforms or systems we can roll out across multiple people that we can have more control over versus departments having individualized AI tools. And right now, we're kind of in the stage where we're focused a little bit more on trying to educate the community versus just outright blocking. We've had a lot of conversations about, do we just block these tools or not? Obviously, at a research organization, there's a lot of different usage of AI going on, individualized groups, and so blocking, I'm concerned we'd have more exceptions than we would getting value from blocking, which would create other bottlenecks. So right now, we're still focused on more of an education policy and the guidelines I talked about on the ai.ku website. We have updated our annual security awareness training to add some components of AI there just to try to get across the community. I've heard other institutions where if you want access to AI tools, they make you do some AI training prior. That's of interest to me. I don't know that we'll be successful, but in order for you to have access to this tool, you should complete this training. So we'll see how that works out over the next year, and maybe I'll have an update next year.
Yeah, so I would say at WSU, it's a lot of the same kind of things that Jeremy was talking about, so I won't repeat all of those, but it's very, very similar. We do have an AI strategy council that's made up of a number of leaders, but we also have some work streams that are really focused on certain areas, and one of the work streams is our GRC work stream, so our governance, risk, and compliance work stream. So we're working on this right now in terms of updating our guidance, thinking about what kind of policy we should have, and things like that. So definitely front and center right now. One thing I would say, though, is if you're working on policy or you're thinking about updating guidance and things like that, one of the things that I'm hoping we can guard against is people just sit down with a piece of paper and just start writing policy. I think the first thing you have to do is to really try to understand, what do you think your risks are? What kind of problems are you trying to solve? And that will drive the level of guidance, that will drive the level of training, that will drive the level of policy that you have to have. So again, I think I've seen a number of cases where people are just diving in, hey, we need a policy on this, hey, we need to write down some updated guidance, and first things first, just understand really what kind of risk you're trying to manage. The other thing I'd mention is you have to understand the type of organization you are and what you're truly capable of doing. I know a lot of folks would like to say, hey, we need to put a lot of controls on this. And we just don't have the capacity to do that. We cannot check everything. We can't see everything. Not everything's visible. So you have to understand what you're capable of doing, and put in those right kind of controls. Truly manage the bigger risks. So I'd agree, agentic AI for sure is something we need to understand a little bit better. But I would say that understanding where to put those guardrails, I think, are key. If somebody's using Claude on their desktop and they're doing some stuff with some local files, I'm not too worried about that. If they want to hook that up to our primary ERP system, I'm very worried about that. So, how do we put those guardrails in place? Yeah, I think that was it.
Thank you. Our next question is for John and Scott. How do you decide when no is the right answer to a campus technology request?
So sometimes you have to say no, but oftentimes it's not a hard no. Comes down to alignment, risk, or capacity. Sometimes you do have to just come out and say no. For alignment, though, does it support what we're trying to do as an institution? Does it support student success, operations, mission work? Does it connect? If it does, maybe it's not now. Maybe it will be something we do later. The second is the risk. Cybersecurity, data privacy, compliance. Also thinking long-term, maybe not just quick wins. If the risk is higher than the value, especially with institutional data, that's where we must step in and, again, maybe pause it, rethink it. Maybe it'll be something we do later. Capacity and timing, some ideas are good. Again, just not right now. Do we have the time, people, and systems to do it all well? That's come up oftentimes at Washburn. People have great ideas, they want to do it, but we don't have the capacity to do it. And we have to say, we need to pause this, we cannot do this, or you need to put more funding into it, more staffing into it, and those discussions that have to happen. Try not to shut things down, but again, have those questions. So maybe pose questions, say, here's what would need to be true for this work, or here's another option that gets you part of the way there. Again, kind of halfway there to meet them. So we're not just coming out and saying no, but getting them part way there. It's about stewardship and keeping the environment secure, sustainable, and aligned, even when it means making that tough call.
I'd say over the last 12 years here at ESU, I feel like there have been instances here where IT here was perceived as a no department. While there are situations we need to say no, my approach built on like being an outside contractor, dealing with salespeople, 20 years in the industry, I like to lead with a solution-focused mindset. I make sure to reach out to the stakeholders, fully evaluate requests before providing an answer. Ensuring we always explore potential options, whenever possible. I do see when the no is necessary, I'm going to rely on my IT team and also establish policies, security standards, and also, my responsibility to protect the university. So that's that's where I feel the no, sometimes there is a hard no, but sometimes you need to figure it out, talk to the folks, and see if there's a way around it to come up with a solution that would work for them. So.
All right, our 8th question today is for Mark. What is something or someone that inspires you to be a better leader?
Well, I thought about this one for a while, and the easy answer is higher education or education in general and our students, and I think probably several of the guys here would have something similar. Obviously, I believe universities and higher ed Um, we provide an opportunity for people to get better. And I think that's what at least gives us a chance to make the world a better place. It's a little hard to see that sometimes these days, but I think that's part of the opportunity. So that's the easy answer. But really, when I think about it, what inspires me are my staff. They are incredibly talented. They show up every day. They solve really hard problems, and they're very I can't think of the word. Well, yeah, Michelle and some of them, they're fun. They are fun. So some of them are not. I mean, but most of them are pretty fun. But they're committed to the work they do, and that inspires me to try to do a better job in supporting them. So.
Thank you, Mark. Question number 9 is for Thomas. How do you measure IT's impact on student success beyond ticket counts and system uptime?
Maybe a mental note, if you're late selecting questions, they select them for you. Thank you very much. So I'm actually happy that this question was assigned to me. One, I think we're all in the admission, enrollment, and recruitment and retention business. We may not know that, but basically every service we do touches a student. That experience they have, the pivots that we have to make, all rely on IT. You know, I think back to a couple weeks ago when many of us had a major incident and how quickly we worked behind the scenes to understand, like, these bad actors did this at the perfect time. Like, if you want to collapse, 900 organizations, you just won. But I think every one of us in our organizations turned inside, partnered with those people, and we shifted what was an electronic process that existed for 20 plus years to sometimes a paper process, to a manual process, and worked volumes of work to get that done. So I think behind the scenes, we all have to understand we wear that admissions, recruitment, retention hat. We also wear it when we walk across campus too. It's the interactions we have with the students, maybe not our students, but the individuals that we come across. It's the parents, and certainly everybody sees it this time of year. It's the alumnus that are bringing their kids back to campus because they understand the importance of our institution, sort of what Mark said. I think the other thing, and I think we do a really good job of this, and I would encourage all of you to sort of circle back. Your student employees are the next generation of employees that will likely work across this industry because they're passionate about higher ed, and many of you probably wear that hat as well. You understand that mentor that you had at a bad day of class because you didn't understand something, and you sat there with your manager at the help desk who said, hey, we can do this, let's do this. They allowed that connection of what you're doing in the classroom and in the work side. So they see that connection. So as you're looking at engineering diagrams as a student saying, I will never do this, it's sort of like me in comm class. I will never get up in front of people and have a conversation. I don't need to take the class. And then John assigns me a question. But you get the point. So I think it's not just about system uptime. It's not just about students. It's how do we make that impact so students understand what's our role and understand here's higher education. We are one of the very few industries that provide a very powerful tool for people to excel in social mobility that doesn't exist elsewhere. So.
Thank you, Thomas. Moving on with a question for John and Ken. What advice would you give institutions that feel pressure to adopt AI quickly but lack staffing or expertise?
So this is something we are struggling with at Washburn, I feel, because obviously AI is coming. Everyone's talking to us about it. They want to do it. Can we use this? Can we do that? Security is concern is what discussed earlier. So the pressure is real, but we don't want to move without direction. So we're forming those committees, doing those types of things. we feel understaffed, feel stretched. We're trying to shift the mindset a bit. We don't have to adopt AI everywhere. I think, Jeremy, you mentioned all vendors are coming and saying they have AI, so we know that's happening. But new products, faculty are coming to us, they have a new product that they want to do, and this is great, they want to do it, and sometimes you have to go back and say, not right now. Maybe later. We just had a conversation here a week or so ago with the CIS department that, later this year. Not sure what's going on with the mic, keeps going out. Let's see. Maybe start small and practical. Pick one or two real problems. Something we have not quite done at Washburn yet. We're having those discussions, again, primarily with our CS department. We're having some internal IT discussions, focusing on student support, admin burdens, IT efficiency. If we can do something with AI to focus on those areas so we can focus and get good at it. We also don't have a position in our department, so it'd be taking a piece of a position for someone doing other things and giving them AI. So we're having discussions to try and figure out what that looks like. Focus on where AI is going to help. Don't just put it in there just because that's the buzzword and that's what the campus wants and that's what they're vying for. We're using what we already have, of course, as I know many are up on the stage and through the various campuses. We have Microsoft 365. We have it. All of our faculty, staff, and students have that. We know they're using it. We also are using a variety of other AI tools as well. We know that. But just knowing that and then understanding that they're putting things in that and trying to get the education out there, trying to do policy, working with our legal team so that don't put personal information in there, trying to get the education out there. I think we're still waiting on that website to be published, by the way. We need to check on that. It's another department doing that one. Keep it simple, organizationally, not building a new department. That's something we're not looking at. It might be something that we do at a later time, might add in a new AI possibly. Thank you. Pull it together cross-functional. Again, it kind of goes back to what I discussed, that we're pulling together IT, academic leadership, our provost office. We have our legal team, so we're getting together to look at policy and look at that side of it. Initially, it came about that they were saying we need to do new AI policy. And we were getting pushback saying, no, we have the policy out there, we're just going to reuse that. And now they've kind of backstepped a little bit on that, where we are going to do some AI policy that's actually supposed to be starting this summer. We have not started it, and here we are in June. We're hopefully going to have that for the fall so that faculty can review that, and Homer, you and I will be on that together. So, but set some basic guardrails or guardrails and run those pilots and figure out how the process is going to work. The biggest gap is not the tech, it's the familiarity. So I've spent some time, I went in front of Faculty Senate, basically showed them what Copilot is, how to use it, what they can put in there, what not to put in there, don't put personal identifiable information, that type of thing, just so they can become comfortable with it. And the fact that they know their students, they have the access to the same thing and a variety of other AI tools as well. Just helping them get comfortable and confident using the tools that are out there, and so that they know that they're available. For me, the winners won't be they won't be the fastest to getting AI out to everyone. It'll be those that are most intentional. Focus on where AI improves the students and employee experiences.
Yeah, I would say that we are definitely in this position of feeling that pressure to move quickly. But I think one of the things that's key is to set expectations with leadership and with your customers. I mentioned this earlier. We are not in a position to check everything, monitor everything, teach everyone everything. So you have to set that expectation that there's going to be a fair amount of activity that just kind of happens organically, and you have to know that and kind of be okay with that. Establish, as John was saying, establish those guardrails, and we talked a little bit about the guidance and policy stuff before. So, but it seems like everybody feels like they're behind. But I don't think everybody can all be behind at the same time. I try to attend a lot of training and webinars and things like that, and everywhere I participate with other organizations, they all kind of seem to be in the same place. Maybe, there's obviously going to be some that are kind of forward and out there, but I think it's good to remind folks that everybody feels like they're behind, and I don't think we're all behind. But one thing I would say is I think you need to leverage the business cases, business case processes, the governance processes that you already have. So if people are saying we need to hurry up and do AI, I think we would look at that and say, well, how do you approach any other idea? How do you approach any other project? You should have a business case that says, hey, there's something there's a return on this activity. You should be able to quantify that and communicate that. And then follow those normal processes you do, right? So a lot of organizations have an IT governance process, a data governance process. I mean, we have those kind of checks and processes at WSU as well. So leverage them, follow them. And you might need to update the kinds of things you check when you're doing those kind of governance checks. But I don't think you need to invent a whole new process around this. Follow those normal business case processes that would help justify doing something. And if it's justified, makes sense, looks like there's a good return, go do it. So I don't think you need to create anything special for this.
Our next question is for Steve and Jeremy. How do you handle escalating reported issues from people who reach out to you specifically for support? How can we change the culture of these direct requests?
I'll start. This is a great question, and being at the Med Center longer than I haven't been, this is somewhat common that this occurs. But I am no longer in the best position to help them. So what I do think it's the root issue, because I do try to look at these as each one that reaches out as, why did they reach out to me? So it generally is some fault of the system in general. Even this week, we're kind of a complex because there's 3 entities, as I talked about earlier, but we had our legal team, our chief legal officer needed to get something out. They were at the Med Center campus. They have dual relationship with Lawrence. Anyway, they were not able to get on the wireless network. They couldn't get an email to send. So they had someone else in office immediately call me on Teams. I was on another call, but I saw who was calling. So, of course, I put it on hold and switched over. So that's just a recent example. So this does happen often. But I look at it and I try to understand initially, just triage it and understand if it's an escalation, if there's a major security issue here, what's going on, or is it just a routing issue? In legal situation, this has kind of been an ongoing problem with their connectivity, so it was no surprise they reached out to me. This wasn't the first time it happened, because in that case, I think they would have probably followed normal channels. To be honest, for them, they probably don't necessarily know the normal channels because they're kind of a Lawrence department that has a spot at the Med Center, and so who do you call for IT in that scenario? To some degree, you could think of it like different campuses, different college campuses, totally. So there is some issues there that we're trying to work out. So it's no surprise they reached out to me, but again, I couldn't solve the issue on the Teams call, so I had to reach out to other team members to get them started investigating. So had they just called the help desk, they would have probably had as quick a resolution as I was able to provide. Transitioning from that example, let's transition to a more simple one. If someone just reaches out to me and says they need something or whatever, I will oftentimes create a ticket for them so that it's very visible that I create the ticket and just let them know, respond saying I created this ticket. I'm confident the team will be able to address this for you. If you have any questions, let me know. So trying to show them that the ticketing process is how we want to handle these, not sending emails directly to me. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think it comes down to people are reaching out directly to someone they know, and it's normally based off of trust. I trust if I reach out to you, this issue will get solved. So I do try to close the loop with people that do reach out to me to make sure the issue's solved. We're trying to put processes in place too from the ticketing system and other avenues to make sure that the user has an opportunity to provide feedback if their issue was not resolved to their satisfaction. Because I think a lot of this come down to, and I've used this example with the team quite a bit. Most people, when they call for help, they don't care if it's an intern that started today as their first day that solved the problem, or if it's me or someone higher than me that solved the problem. They just want the problem fixed at the end of the day. And they want to trust it's fixed. So I think a lot of these come down to, the process is too complicated. I don't know how to make sure my issue gets fixed. I'm reaching out to someone that I think can fix my issue. So that gets into, how do we start to solve this? We have to make the process for getting support simple. Users have to know how to do it, and they cannot be bombarded with a lot of overhead that they don't see as any value. So make the process, the official path known, make it faster and easier than to reach out to me, for example. Also work to publish clear SLAs. There's SLAs for the IT teams, but there's also SLAs for the customer. You cannot call in a critical ticket on a Friday afternoon and you go off on the weekend and expect us to work it continuously. That's not going to work. So the team, so we have published those very clearly, and the team will downgrade that criticality because you as a customer are not meeting your SLA to help us solve the issue. So just being transparent on expectations. Like I said earlier, I will create tickets for people just to kind of model the behavior that I expect. Be very transparent. I create the ticket and let the team work the ticket. I don't create the ticket and then go work it myself. I just submit the ticket just like the customer would have. I submit it from the customer's facing interface, not even the IT facing interface, and I let it go through the process. That's also an opportunity for me to learn the process, and is it actually delivering value to the customer or not? Because again, we get back to the trust issue. If the process that they're following, if I follow a different process and if I get better service, then of course they're going to keep reaching out to me. So I follow it just like the customer. I just go to the portal that the customer see, submit the ticket with the information I have from the email. If I have additional context, which I normally don't, but if I do, I will add a little bit of that in the ticket, but I try not to do anything different than what the customer would do. And then I said earlier, I do reflect back on why did this come to me? Did it make sense to come to me or not? And what can we do to improve the process so the customer does the right thing the next time?
Well, I have a much different perspective on this, but we kind of wind up at the same place. I support an office of what used to be 60 people. Now it's about 50 people. So yes, they contact me all the time for support, and that's the way that it's supposed to work. So, I frequently am taking out time, stopping. There's a problem with the backup, or we're migrating virtual infrastructure from one platform to another, and I have to stop because somebody's Outlook looks different now, and they don't know why, or something else that they can't do, and I don't mind that, and actually I enjoy that. So the perspective that I would bring to this is that the benefit that we have, and it's kind of what Jeremy talked about earlier with what's not central IT, but what's the other term? Distributed IT. We're so small, it's basically considered distributed IT. And the advantage is I get to know all these people. I provide them IT orientation when they start. I know them then. I know them through what they're doing. I talk with them constantly. So in terms of escalating tickets, when I get a question, I kind of know already if one person's down, it's okay for a little while. If another person's down, that needs to be fixed right away. If this problem's occurring, it's probably just something, and they may figure it out for themselves in a while. If it's something else, it's probably affecting more people, and I have a better sense of how that all is fitting together. But more importantly, and I think this is, I know this doesn't scale out to your universities. There's no way you can have that. But I do think that the relationship is the important part, and kind of this trust that Jeremy mentioned. They reach out to the people that they trust, and I want them to trust me, so I work hard on keeping those relationships going. I don't want them creating their own answers in some cases, or messing with something to try to fix it and making the problem worse. So I do think it's all about relationships and trust and keeping that built. I don't know how you do that in your scale, but I think it is important, and I think you can probably do it.
Great answers. Next, we have another question for Mark. What is one thing you dread and one thing you are excited about for the future of technology?
So yesterday, the CIOs met with a whole bunch of the vendors. Probably not all of them, but most of them were in that meeting. And it was phrased a little differently. It was what keeps you up at night. But that's also kind of the things that I dread as well, so it kind of fits. And the thing that kept being reiterated by many of us is the pace of change in technology. And it is exhausting, to say the least. And having done this longer than everybody up here, maybe everybody here, I don't know, but the pace of change in technology has always been pretty rapid, but with AI here the last few years, it has accelerated. It's astounding. And it causes so many problems. It causes cybersecurity problems because we don't know what's going on with all these changes. It causes skill gaps because my staff can't keep up with all the changes. It creates shadow IT, again, because we can't keep up with the changes, so the users are finding their own solutions and creating their own shadow IT. So the pace of change is really the thing that just bugs me the most, probably, about IT right now in today's world. Now, in that same vein, you talk about, well, what excites you about technology, and it is some of those changes, probably not all of them, but some of those changes, and how they're impacting higher education and our students and our faculty. We're able to provide services to make things simpler, easier, better, that just weren't available before. And I think that's really cool. Just the digital transformation, the accessibility that we're providing to our faculty and our students, I think that's really cool. And it's, again, with AI, that trend is just going to continue. And I think it really speaks to a really cool future. And I hope that I'm around to see it, but we'll see.
Thank you. Our final question today is for John. If you could pick a sci-fi character to assist with doing your job, which one would it be and why?
I was really surprised no one else picked this question, and I didn't assign it to you. So, yeah. I went with the Doctor from Doctor Who. What I like about the Doctor, it doesn't just fix problems, tends to reframe them, challenges assumptions, and looks past the obvious. Comfortable in complexity, used to operating in messy, constantly changing situations. The Doctor can make decisions without having all the answers. Creative but still practical. Sees connections others might not see. Balances big picture thinking with getting things done. A strong sense of purpose, driven by what really matters. Focuses on outcomes, not just the activity. How it connects back to the CIO role and why it would help in my role. And I like to think I do some of these, but I'm not sure I always do. Most of what we deal with doesn't come with a playbook. I was talking with some here, just when I started in this role, a lot of it just trying to figure it out. What do I do day to day? What does this look like? It was new to me. I had a mentor, so that helped me. It'd be nice to have Doctor Who there in my ear talking to me. You must be adaptable and think creatively. Again, that's something I hope I do. Hopefully my staff sees that I do. I try to. But you also need to stay grounded in why the work matters. To close out, just the mix of adaptability, creativity, and purpose, exactly what is needed in IT leadership, and that's who I need in my ear.
Thank you, John. That wraps up our questions for the CIO panel today. Please join me in a round of applause for our participants. Thank you all for coming, and enjoy the rest of your day.